Hey, what's going on, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to this week's Productive Agent Podcast. My name is Tony Ruiz. I'm the founder and host of the Productive Agent Podcast and Facebook group. Today, I'm joined by my good friend, Mr. Bobby Cortez.
Good friend.
Yeah, good friend.
I like it.
Right on. Yeah, we met about a year and a half ago. You and JJ joined the EXP team.
Yes.
And JJ was very vocal, and I always thought like you were the guy in the background doing all the work. And then, we've kind of started playing basketball together, and thanks for the invite.
For sure.
And then thanks for inviting me here. This is the first time that I've come to somebody's house to do the recording. So, you talked about multiple properties that you own. What do you love about living downtown in this area?
So downtown for me early on, so I bought this place maybe, 11 years ago, 12 years ago?
Yeah.
And I wanted this Chicago, New York style loft where it's just open and exposed ductwork and exposed sprinkler heads and exposed brick. And I was looking for that.
Yeah.
And I found a building that had it, and I waited for the right one. There's a corner unit, and I bought it, and I lived in it for about a year, and then I abandoned it. And I rented it out for a long time.
Well, why did you abandon it?
And it's weird because I get bored. It's
Okay.
like I found it, I renovated it, I did it, I redid it,
Yeah.
and then I'm like, okay, what's next?
Sure.
But the good thing is I kept it, and it was a rental for a long time. It was a good rental. And recently we had bought something in New Braunfels, and we were kind of tired of New Braunfels. It wasn't us.
Yeah.
And it was turned that into a rental. And then we said, hey, let's go back downtown. This was vacant. I said, let's renovate it, and then we'll do downtown again. So
Yeah.
here we are.
Awesome, man. Well, it's a really cool place. Tell us a little bit about your collection. So you have like a whole shoe collection going on. You've been doing that for how many years?
So shoes has been me since I was a kid. So I went
Yeah.
to school in the east side San Antonio, and that was the thing. If you didn't have new, clean shoes, and it was Jordans, it was always sneakers.
Okay.
Then you kind of didn't fit in. It was kind of the thing, and it's always been my thing. And
Yeah.
even to this day, I'm getting older. I'm 46 now. I got to get away from it. I got to stop. I'm not a kid. It's just me though. I can't stop. No.
What's your favorite shoe?
Favorite shoe of all time? I'm gonna say it probably means nothing to anyone. So probably Jordan 3 Black Cement would be my
Jordan
favorite.
3 Black Cement.
I'll show it to you in a bit.
All right. Yeah.
But yeah, I collect a lot of things. I like shoes. I like art. I like guitars. I like watches. I like to collect things I like.
Tell us about these guitars back here.
So I got a bunch of guitars, and I got a lot more than that. These are just the
Really?
ones that I have out.
Okay.
They're all signature guitars. Like one of them is my favorite guitarist, my favorite singer musician ever is Tom DeLonge from Blink-182. And the one in the top right corner, he recorded and toured with it, and then he did like an art piece with it, and then he signed it over to me, and he said, to Bobby, don't play this guitar better than me. So it's a display thing.
Nice. Very cool, man. No, thanks for having me here, and looking forward to just kind of picking your brain. We were at a party recently, and I love talking sports with you, and you're very passionate about your beliefs. And let's start with that real quick. Let's talk about your top 5, because we had this argument going back and forth between me, you, Jim Ragsdale. Y'all were getting pretty heated about it, but your top 5 in NBA. I know you're a big basketball fan.
The argument was he puts Jordan or LeBron before Jordan, which I think is crazy.
Yeah.
But it's obviously Jordan before LeBron. So
absolutely.
I still have LeBron in my top 5. I just don't have him number 1 the way he does. I have Jordan, and then I want to put Magic second. I still have Kobe. I'll put him at 3.
Whoa. So you have Jordan number 1. We're talking about all time.
Yes.
And number 2 is who?
I like Magic.
All time.
All time.
Oof. Wow. Okay.
And then I have Kobe, and then we can bring in LeBron, and then I got Bird 5.
Okay.
And that was tough for me. For a long time, I had Bird, and then...
But what was it, him or you that had the weird, starting 5?
No. He picked a 5, but when he heard mine, then he altered his 5.
That's right. What was your 5? Your starting 5?
So I had Jordan, Kobe, which is... It's usually one or the other, but I had them both.
Right.
And then I had Magic. I had Shaq.
Magic at the point.
Yeah. And then Shaq, and then I had Tim Duncan.
That's right.
My San Antonio.
Timmy, yeah. Absolutely. True Spurs fans right here. My favorite, though, is Manu Ginobili.
That's my favorite Spur of all time.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Easy.
Super passionate, played hard all the time.
Yeah.
Loved it. Well, cool, man. So talk to us a little bit back. Let's back up before real estate and all that. You mentioned it. Where are you from? Where'd you go to school? And what did you do before you got into real estate? Give us a background.
So raised in the southeast part of San Antonio. I went to Brackenridge High School, not far from downtown San Antonio. Right out of high school, I did a couple years of college. Wasn't me. I wanted to be a police officer at one point, which is kind of weird.
Okay.
And then at one point I was like, you know what? Not me. And then I opened a billiard store. I did billiards where we sold pool tables and dart equipment and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Did that for a few years, and I was like, not me again.
Okay.
Right? Then I got tired of it. I tried several other businesses in malls, and then after a while, I was like, okay, I'm done with malls. I did it for several years. Had some money. I wanted to invest in real estate. So I got my license to invest in real estate, and then I became a full-time real estate agent once I got in.
Gotcha. What did you love about real estate when you got in that kind of hooked you?
I just enjoyed like going into houses and looking and exploring and like getting to know. I love architecture. Like that's always been like a big deal for me. Even to this day, I travel a lot, and sometimes I travel just to see different types of architecture. So it was just looking at houses and just getting to know homes.
Okay.
And even to this day, JJ, my business partner, he's weirded out because if I'm not working, there's times that I'm scheduling homes in different parts of town just because I want to see what, what's new, what are they doing over there, and I want to just get familiar.
Speaking of, what are some of your favorite parts of San Antonio that you like, the architecture or the houses?
Favorite architecture. So I like historic homes. So like obviously like King William or Monte Vista. I really like, and I feel like I can do that now. Like for a long time, I was like, maybe I couldn't live in an old home with old home issues. But lately, I've been like, I think that's maybe my next move because I get bored, and then I start looking like, what am I doing next? I've only been here back downtown for like the past 7 or 8 months, and I'm already like, all right, what's next? I already did it. Yeah. So I'm looking at Monte Vista now. I really like Monte Vista, and there's several other neighborhoods where I'm like, maybe, but I'm really focused on Monte Vista right now.
Okay. So talk to us a little bit about your travels. You travel a lot, and you do a lot of business. How'd you get started with traveling? Did you travel as you were a youngster?
No. So as a kid, our traveling was like, my parents would take us to Corpus. That was our traveling. We'd go to Corpus or we'd go to Houston. Yeah. And there was nothing else. Yeah. Corpus or Houston. And as I got older, I started traveling to see my favorite musicians. So like I remember was it 99 or it might have been, no, in 2001, I booked a trip to San Diego to see Blink-182 in their home show. Okay. And this was like a week after 9/11. And then for like a few days, like there was no flying. Mm-hmm. And then they started flying again, and then they rescheduled the concert, and it was like a day or two after they started flying again. And I was super freaked out. Yeah. And I took a weird turn, didn't I? And yeah, so I remember going, and it was like super scared, but I had to go see Blink-182 in San Diego. And it started in 2001, and it never stopped. And I travel a lot, and it's not always for concerts. Sometimes it is, but it's frequent. Like I'm on a plane every 3 to 4 weeks. Like I want to see it all. Like it's all on my list. And sometimes it's overseas, and sometimes it's in the United States. But I've seen almost every major city in the United States. And there's a few that I haven't seen, and I'll go just because I haven't seen them, even though I know, like, I'm probably not going to like it, but I haven't seen it. I have to go. And there's still a few. Like, I did Cleveland, didn't like it, but Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I did Detroit, kind of hated it, but I picked a concert that was going to be there. Sure. But I've done almost every major city. Now I've done a lot of Europe. I've done, Costa Rica, Puerto Rico. I've been out a bunch, and now I'm starting to like look at the Asian countries. I want to do that part of the world.
So you probably don't repeat a lot of places. You try to always have something new to go to.
So I repeat my favorites. Okay. South California is always like, I'll do it 3 or 4 times a year. All right. I'm going next week. Nice. So I love San Diego. It's my favorite city in the world. I love Los Angeles. Not to live in, but I like to see it. I love Palm Springs. So the whole just South California, I love it. And I do Vegas frequently. That's been my thing forever. I like to gamble, kind of. I shouldn't say that, right? I like to shop. I like the shows. I like the restaurants. Everything about Vegas is just, it feels good to me.
I heard you like playing craps.
So Shane,
Shane,
our mutual buddy. Yeah. So we do blackjack, we do craps together, and we go frequently. We've been going forever. We used to go when we were single, and now we have girlfriends, so we take our girlfriends. So now it's not so much all gambling. Now it's shows and restaurants, and with a little bit of gambling sprinkled in.
Are you the type of craps player? I like to play craps. My brother's way into it. Do you set the dice a certain way, or you just throw them a little wild?
I mean,
or
it's
what?
going to do what it's going to do. Everyone says, look, I'm really good. Like, you can't. But yes, I have a little routine, right?
Yeah.
And I set them up in a certain number, and then yes, it's a certain release.
Do you have to stand at a certain place on the table?
I like the corners.
You like to be on the corners.
I like the corners.
Oh, wow.
And I'm a horrible roller. And you can ask anyone that goes, you know what? Next time you see JJ or Shane, say, how good of a roller is Bobby? And they'll laugh.
And
it's horrible.
I'm guessing JJ is tries to be really good at it.
If I have to say somebody's good at rolling dice, I'd have to say JJ.
Really?
Because I've done well with him rolling.
Okay.
Yeah. Shane looks good doing it, but we never make any money. Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I like to be right by the dealer, right by the stick, so the short table.
That's where I should be. Yeah. But I take the corner, and it's a long throw, and sometimes they fall off the table, and everyone's laughing. It's pretty comical. It's a mess, but I enjoy it.
Sounds like a good time. So let's back up. You get into real estate. Mm-hmm. What was that first year like? What was your production like? What did you do on a day-to-day basis? What brokerage did you start with?
So I started with Keller Williams. So when I came in, I met a guy when I was taking my real estate license, and he says, you got to go to Keller Williams. And he wasn't with Keller Williams. He just talked about all the education.
He wasn't with Keller Williams?
No, he was at one point.
Okay.
He was with the smaller brokerage at the time.
Gotcha.
And he says, but you would probably do better there.
Okay.
And I went. And at the time, there was a first-year mentor coach. His name was Bob Contreras. He was our first-year coach, which was a good friend of mine. He passed away recently, R.I.P. And super good dude. And he taught me real estate, what I needed to know at that moment. And through him, I met JJ.
Okay.
And it was really weird. So if you remember, I started in 2005. And it was an older person's game. So when you come in, this was when Century 21 was still dominating the older people with their coats, and it was just an older group. And I was in my mid-20s, and I looked really young. Like even now I'm 46, I might look young for my age, but in my early 20s, I looked like a kid.
Right.
And I was still wearing a baseball cap. I was driving a Mustang. I was just, I didn't look the part. I didn't act the part, but I was there.
Yeah.
I met JJ through Bob, our first-year coach, who also went through his mentorship and his coaching. And we hit it off because we're like the youngest guys in the office. And we're known as the young guys. Now, fast forward, 18, 19 years. Yeah. We're just guys in the office.
When do you think that transition? So you started 2005. You said it was an old man's game, Do you remember around a certain time or certain year that you felt like a kind of transition?
Yeah. So when we came in, it was like almost prehistoric type of, real estate, where we're doing magazine ads and we're doing 1-800 numbers on lawn signs to capture leads, and we're doing like different things that no longer exist. And at some point, internet became very dominant. And then even a little later, after it was all internet based, it became application based, where Zillow's and all the other companies came up with their. And at that point, it turned little by little, where the younger people started coming in.
Yeah.
But I think it was the internet and technology, because when I came in, I still remember realtors that didn't have cell phones, which is weird.
They were at the office just taking the phone?
They would take phone calls to the office. I remember a lady, I was trying to submit an offer, and I'm like, can I get her cell phone? And she didn't have a cell phone. I remember having to fax things. Yeah. I remember having, like, if I had an offer and I wanted to get accepted, I remember driving to the brokerage and hand deliver it with option money and earnest money, and hopefully it gets signed. And if it didn't, then I'm doing this whole thing where I'm picking it up and changing the. So it was just a different style of real estate. This is before GPS was on phones. Like, I remember the Mapsco books.
Yeah.
And that was a life changer for me. Yeah. I remember driving to a house with this book, and you get there, and your clients are looking at the house, and you have this book, and you're trying to map yourself to the next house, and you're making mistakes because you're driving with this book, and it's always that weird look where you go down the wrong road because you're driving and you're reading a book, and you make eye contact with your client, and you're like, oh yeah, I screwed up again. So at one point, my brother bought remember the TomToms?
Yeah.
And he says, you have to borrow this thing. It'll change your life. I'm like, no, I'm really good at the way I do it now. I don't need your technology, right?
So your brother introduced you to this?
Yes.
Was he in real estate?
No, he bought one. He was like,
okay.
He's like very techy. Even to this day, he's got all the technology stuff.
Okay.
So he landed to me. He's like, so where are you going? I said, look, I got to show these 5 houses. And he put them all in there in order. And then he stuck it to my window, right? A little suction thing. Yeah. And I'm driving, and it's like just pointing, and it's like, and it was mindless.
Yeah.
And I get to the house, and then now I'm talking to my client.
Yep.
And I'm like trying to sell the house, or not really. You don't really sell a house, right? But there's a conversation, and you're getting to know your client rather than looking at a book to see where you're going next.
Pause real quick because I want to get into that a little bit. You're showing a house, and the reason I bring this up is when I interviewed JJ, he was like, "You got to get Bob on the show. You know, he's so good. Mm-hmm. He's just, you know, he's a closer. Mm-hmm. He's that type." And I love what you just said. You don't sell him a house, and you don't. You're just having a conversation. Mm-hmm. But let's pause right there and talk us through showing a house.
Talk us through showing a house.
What are you trying to get out of the client? What are you trying to point out things if you are? Just talk about the whole process of having a great showing with a great client.
So I focus on, I pretty much have their back. If they like it, I like it.
Yeah.
If they hate it, I hate it. You never want to be that guy that hates the house that your client bought, right? Because that's an awkward conversation. Like you start talking bad about it, and then all of a sudden, but we like it, and then it's just this awkwardness. You just made fun of our house.
Right.
So if they don't like it, you're not going to convince them otherwise. You hate it too. They hate it, you hate it. If I start to hear like, ooh, or look at this, I'm also pointing out things too. You know, they walk in and they make some comment on something that they like. I'll find something else I like, and we start talking. You know, we're gonna like it together. And then at that point, we start running numbers. I automatically bring out my computer. I take my computer everywhere. Okay. I'm running numbers. We're talking about like, how is it priced? Is it overpriced? We start talking offers. And, you know, if you start, you know, pushing the ball forward, you know, they're going to come with you. Yeah. And then we start talking about, you know, we can, you know, is this our favorite? Can we do something with this one? Should we submit an offer? And always focus on like, hey, we have an option period. If it turns out that we lock it up and we find something else, we can back out. You know, it cost you $100, but you didn't lose the house. The problem people do is they shop, fall in love with something, but they don't want to stop. They keep shopping, and then when they come back around to the house that they liked 3-4 days ago, it's gone because they didn't lock it up. I always say, let's put an offer. Let's get a 10-day option period. The option period is a 10-day window where you can do inspections, you can check the schools, whatever you want to do, and if you want to back out, you back out. Right. So I'm like, hey, let's lock it up. Let's use our option period. Let's look a little bit more. That way, if you find something you like better, you can let this one go and move to that one. Right. And chances are, you know, once you get them under contract, once you start ordering inspections, once they get focused, and then they get committed to the house a little bit. Yeah. So it's just really helping them. And some people need the help, and some people don't. Sure. There's a lot of people that just can't take that step. Mm-hmm. And you have to like give them little nudges, and you got to drag them to the finish line. But I'm never forcing a house that they don't want on them. Yeah. I'm just helping them buy a house that they want, and sometimes they need help.
It was kind of like our bet the other day that you just wouldn't like.
I was trying to make him a bet. We're not going to talk about it. He didn't want it. And I tried to. I was trying to give you odds, and I did everything I could to get you to commit. I couldn't get you to commit.
Yeah, but you didn't. You never forced it upon me. But you kept on trying to slide it in.
I feel like I forced it. I feel like I forced it.
I don't know. Maybe just because I really like you. You know, and it's like
I wasn't offensive.
It didn't feel. Yeah, exactly.
So it's helping them when, and you can tell. I can tell when a client is a little stronger, a little more decisive. Mm-hmm. And he may not need as much help as a certain other, maybe somebody that's a little more introvert or a little needs more facts or needs to see more or afraid to take that step. Right. And then you start to help them. And a lot of times I help them with stories. Yeah. I might tell them like, hey, if this is the one, you know, let me tell you what happened to my other guy. Fell in love with it. Didn't lock it up. And then we shopped for another 3 or 4 months. And then he always talked about the house that he, you know, don't be that guy. You know, sometimes it's a story, and that's happened before many times. Right. And I'll bring it up, and like, you know what, you're right. Maybe we should lock it up. Yeah. Just to help.
If you have a client, this kind of goes in line with this. Mm-hmm. If you have a client that's you're working with 5 or 6 buyers at a time, whatever. They go, hey, Bobby, here's 5 properties that we're interested in. Mm-hmm. Do you show them all at the same time? How many properties do you show in a day? What does that look like scheduling wise?
So if I get somebody if they just schedule way too many houses, or they just pick out 30, 40 houses, right. we're going to have a conversation. There's no way you like 40 houses on the market right now. It looks like that's not a realistic, goal, right? So I'll have a conversation like, hey, let's narrow this down to something, because you can easily look at 8 to 12 houses. At 10 houses, they're going to get tired.
Yeah, for sure.
What I'll do is I'll get a general area and like, let's look at these today, and then we'll go tomorrow and finish these off.
Right.
And sometimes you have to tire them out. Right? You ever done that? Where
no, I don't think so.
I'm not tapping out. I'm going to wait till they tap out. And it might get to the point where like, you know what? I'm tired of looking. Let's just go with this one. And that might be another way. But I will look. The thing that I also don't want to do is I don't want them to give me 10 houses to look at today. And then I only showed them half of them. And then one of them went under contract and it was my fault because I put it off. It's never going to be my fault that they didn't get their house.
Right.
So if, I have a business partner.
Yeah.
And if I'm not there, then they're there. Yeah. Then he's there. So, but we're always pushing.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I get a similar thing. Some clients will just pick like a few, and it's like, okay, these are the ones that they're very interested in. Then I have some that are like liking a lot of properties on MLS, and I always tell them, I was like, look, we don't want to miss out on anything. So the 30 houses that you sent me, give me your top 10. That's right. And then we narrow it down to top 10. So they go back through it and they're like, these are my top 10. Great. Give me your top 5 that we can go tomorrow or today and look at.
And I'll do this too. If they want to look at 10 or 12, I'm like, we can do 10 or 12, but I need you to do something. If we walk in and you don't like it, and you don't like it, then we got to go.
Get out.
Yeah, because there's people, I'm sure you've seen them, they're walking around, they're just picking it apart. They don't like it. They hate it. And they're just looking around, oh, I hate that. I'm like,
why are we here?
It's obvious that you don't like it. Let's go.
Right.
I'm like, if we pull up to the front of the house and you don't like it, let's not go inside.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next one. Like, we have a lot of them to look at, and we got to get through these 12.
Right.
If you can be that person with me, like if you can be like, hey, this don't work, let's go.
Yeah.
And I'll have that conversation.
Yep.
And they'll appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And I tell them this, but if you like something and we walk it and you say this, then let's spend time in it. Let's not spend time in the ones that you don't like.
Sure.
And it's setting expectations up front.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you do that, man, they respect you a lot more.
Yes.
And it's just a better deal. So we got sidetracked a little bit. First year, you were a solo agent, weren't you? And then like the second year, y'all joined up?
I was a solo agent. Oh yeah, so I was telling you, he lent me his GPS, my brother did. Yeah. And I got back to the office, and it was the easiest time I've ever had showing houses, because it was mindless to get from house to house, because that was a thing back in the day, just trying to find the next house. And I told JJ, I said, dude, I got this thing, this GPS thing, and it was so, and he says, oh, I don't need that. I do it my way. JJ's very like, you're not going to convince JJ.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
I said, and I let him borrow it. Same thing. He didn't come home without buying his own. And that was one of the first game changers for us. And our next game changer was DocuSign.
Yeah.
I remember we were one of the first people to get DocuSign, and people were weirded out by it. They didn't want to accept it. Like, what is this? No, we need signatures. I'm like, no, this is legal. Like,
Yeah.
And that was a game changer for us. Then there was these little things throughout the years.
Right.
It made working with more buyers and more sellers, easier. You can work a bigger workload.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm sorry, what was your next question?
No, it's all good. So you did your first year solo, kind of. Y'all were like, y'all were the young guys, so y'all connected. And then when did y'all decide to join up as an official team or
So we came
partnership?
in, we started dialing together. So one of the things in real estate is you're constantly looking for business. And we used to organize some of the guys that we knew. So it was me and JJ, and we had a couple of guys that were friends from high school that we started real estate together. And we would get together we'd pick different houses. It'd be my house one day, it'd be JJ's house one day, or one of the guys' apartment, whatever it was. And we would just dial, and we would talk like, how did it go? And we would script, and we would practice scripts together. And if we can, sometimes we would get shot down really bad, and we would laugh about it. But it was a group thing, and it was usually me and JJ really pushing the hardest. Yeah. And they would do messing around. After like 20, 30 minutes of dialing, they would just kind of give up and just be in the background. And then it became just me and JJ.
Yeah.
And then right around, so we came in 2005. He was 2004. I was 2005. And I think right around 2007, we teamed up. So we had decided we were going to leave and open up our own brokerage. And rather than, long story short, we decided against it, but we said, if we stay, let's team up.
Okay.
And then we said, we'll do magazine things together. We'll do our website together. We didn't have a website at the time, which was a big thing. And now everyone has a website, right?
Yeah.
So we, we did it at that time. Like, let's team up, let's get an office together, let's get an assistant, let's take it to the next level. So we ended up getting an assistant soon after that. And then within 6-7 months, we got our first buyer's agent, and then we just grew and grew and grew. And then it got to a point where me and JJ were very well known. We won probably every award that you can think of in real estate. Yeah. And we're still together.
Yeah. And y'all have always been the Trey group from the beginning?
Yes. Trey is JJ's son. I'm sure he's told you.
I just figured that out not that long ago.
Really?
I think it was around his birthday. I was like, oh, that's why they're called the Trey group.
Yeah. So we're thinking of a name. So he was already the name the Trey group, JJ was.
Oh, okay.
But he was a Trey group by himself. Right? Yeah. So he called himself a group, but he was a one-man band. Yeah. He played the drums and the vocals. And we said, like, let's think of a name. And then he's like, well, I'm already the Trey group. Let's just be the Trey group. And to me, I was like, I don't care. Like, He said, I already branded it. I'm like, I guess, whatever. Like, if it works, it works. Let's do it. And it's been in the Trey group ever since. Yeah. And you know what's weird? Like, people call me Trey. Hey, Trey. I'm like, whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So, yeah, you mentioned it a little bit the other night when we were hanging out. How big did your team get at one point? And because y'all grew that pretty big.
Yeah, at our biggest, it was, I would say, maybe a 12, 13 man team. Okay. With 3 assistants. We had a dialer. We had listing assistant. We had a buyer's assistant. For the contracts and paperwork. We had agents that would just do nothing but showing houses. And JJ became at that point a full-time commercial agent. I was a full-time listing agent, and I was a team leader, and JJ was the OP. He was like the big picture guy for the team.
Got it.
And I was the day-to-day, and I was, I would help the team with issues. I was always the guy that negotiated for the team. Right. So anytime they needed help negotiating or putting out offers, putting out fires. So like every contract has fires. Sure. And JJ always had problems with it. And I was always really good at it. So that was always something that I took on for me.
You complemented each other pretty well.
Yeah, because he to him, if he was helping somebody put out an issue, he would take that home with him. And I was I can disconnect. Yeah. I go home, I'm disconnected, I'm fine. And he had a problem with it. So it became the job that I did. I was always putting out fires. I was a listing agent, and I would negotiate a lot when they needed help.
Cool. And one of the things y'all did very successfully was the radio show. Mm-hmm. How did that come about? Why did y'all start that? It was probably one of the first of its kind. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about that.
So we started a radio show. Yeah, there wasn't a lot of people doing radio, especially real estate agents. Somebody reached out to us from San Diego, and they said, hey, we heard about you guys, and we think you'd be good on the radio. Mm-hmm. And they flew us out to San Diego. They taught us how to be on the radio. Okay. And JJ loved it. And I wasn't very good at it. JJ was really, he picked it up really good. And I was just, me messing around, playing. I had fun with it, and it worked, and we had a good time. So we did it for, I would say, 5-6 years straight. And then the pandemic hit, and then we tried to keep it going. So we were doing interviews through Zoom. And it just didn't work. It didn't have that feeling. You didn't have that. We're actually sitting in a radio station, and they'd come in and greet them, and we would have like a green room where we sit down and get to know them, and we had it's like snacks and drinks, and it was like it was a whole thing, and we lost that connection. We had no connection. It was just it became just interview after interview. We weren't meeting people. We weren't growing the way we wanted to. Mm. So we said, you know what, let's just stop because it's not effective anymore. Yeah. And we said we're going to pick it back up, and we haven't. Okay. So maybe we will. Yeah. I don't know.
Who knows?
But now everyone's doing podcasts.
Yeah, the podcast is the thing now.
So now it's a podcast. So maybe I don't know.
Yeah. Who knows? So talk to us a little bit about how y'all grew y'all's business in the early days. You said y'all did a lot of calls, a lot of dials, expires for sale by owners type of stuff, or what was that like?
So JJ and myself, we went through the same second-year coach. I don't want to say his name right now. He's still there. He's still around. He's still kind of a friend of ours. Okay. And he was our second-year coach, and he was my boot camp. He was the one that really started us out in the right direction. He's the one that says, this is how you properly run a real estate business. He says, if you're not, looking for a business, then you're not working. He was the first person that really put that into who we are. So because of him, we kind of went in a certain direction, and we, everything in the beginning was like all the free stuff, right? And it was open houses. So people don't know, open houses aren't to sell the house that you're at, it's to meet people, right?
Yeah.
So we would do open houses. How many people can we meet and put into our database?
Yeah.
We didn't, JJ's not even from San Antonio. And I didn't, most of my people, I was, from the southeast part of San Antonio, they weren't buying houses. So our sphere of influence, our database, the people that knew us, they weren't buying houses. So we needed to meet people that would. So we would do all the free stuff. We were doing open houses multiple a week. I did door knocking. I did expired. So anytime the house didn't sell, I would call on them and see if I can get them, maybe trust me to sell it. I did for sale by owners. I did anything I could that was free.
Yep.
And throughout the years of doing that, it got to the point where now we have well over, I think 1,500 to 2,000 people, past clients that we've sold houses, that we mail to, that know us, that like us, that trust us, that call us, that, so everything we do now is referral.
Yeah.
And I think that should be everyone's ultimate end game. Like, hey, this is where you should go to.
Yeah.
We don't pay for any leads. At that one point, we were spending tons of money to all the Zillows and the Trulias and the homes.com.
Right.
And at some point we're like, you know what? We need to go in this direction. And it's probably one of the best things we've ever did.
When did you make that transition? So obviously y'all were grinding, y'all were putting people in your database, you were meeting people, all that, that most agents do when they start their business. And then you get to a point, it's like you look up and you go, wow, we have all these past clients. Now we're just really focused on database. We pretty much have put the open house, the calls behind us. We're just cultivating our database.
So JG's really good at tracking, and I'm not. Yeah. So at some point he was like, hey, we're getting X amount of money for our investment. And it was like 10-1 on our investment. So if we invested $1,000 in Zillow, it would usually give us $10,000 in return, right? And at some point it got to the point where it's like, hey, it's 5-1. And then it was 3-1. And then it ended up being 1-1. And then I was paying an agent to go out and show it. And I was paying taxes. And then I ended up helping them to negotiate the deal. And it got to a point where, like, we're not making money anymore.
Yeah.
The leads got so expensive. Like, you can buy zip codes. And we had Stone Oak. And we own most of Stone Oak. And we own all the different parts of town that we needed. And we're spending like, 10, 15 grand. And it got to a point where, like, you know what? It just doesn't make sense anymore.
Yeah.
So that's when we started focusing on events. And having like large events for clients where we invite 50, 60 at a time, spend time with them. We do a Christmas thing with them. We do an Easter thing with them. We do different events in the area.
Who gave you that idea to get into the events? I'm assuming there was probably some realtor or people that were like, this is what we do.
It's always been a thing, right? Yeah. It's always been a thing. And JJ was probably the one that says, this is what we should be doing.
Yeah.
And then I remember sitting down like, okay, let's think about, doing one large event a quarter and then smaller events throughout the year. And we had like a schedule that we scheduled the whole year, and the whole team focused on it.
Yeah.
And it worked. It got to a point where we start hanging out with people that know us rather than spending money on people that, want to hang up on us.
Right.
And it worked. It's really what we do now.
Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about, and this is probably a two-part question. What does your day-to-day, week-to-week look like? Because right now your database is referrals. You've been doing this, I think, 19 years. But what did it look like maybe when you made that transition, right, away from paying all that stuff, all the leads to, hey, we're going to focus on our database. We're going to do these events. What did your day-to-day, week-to-week look like then, and how is it different, if at all, now?
It was always talking to 20 people a day at minimum. So every day I'd show up to the office and I'd pull up my database where, everything was organized. My assistant always did a good job of like, these are who closed in this year and this is who, you need to call. And I would get in there and update notes on them. So I would, every single day, I would talk to 20 people. After those 20 people, I would go into people that had business that I had to attend to today. Like, hey, so-and-so told me to call him, he needs to do this. And then it would go from that to putting out fires, and then it go into real estate business. But it was always my 20 people that I need to talk to today, 20 or my people that I need to call that are expecting my call today, and then the real estate business, like so and so, I have to negotiate an inspection, and then I deal with that stuff later. But it was always that at 8 in the morning, every day.
8 in the morning. Here's your 20 people that you're calling. Who are those people? What are you calling them about? What does that look like? It's
past clients. We'd pick letters. JJ would be like, okay, I'm going to call the Q's or the R's. There's probably not many Q's, right? I'd call them, I'll start on the A's. And then I would just go through my A's. And I would talk to people that I hadn't talked to in a while. See, that's probably the biggest complaint with clients is that you just never got a hold of them, or you never talked to them, or you just kind of abandoned them once they closed.
Yeah.
We would try to not do that. You know? And it'd be like, it's just a conversation. How you been? I was in your neighborhood. You know, how's the house coming? It's been 5 years. You know, maybe you mind if I send you a market analysis because your house is worth a lot more now than it was, you know. And they're like, you know what? I was thinking of selling. And it always come up like, maybe we should do something. Yeah. And it brings business.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
Right on. 20 phone calls. It's that easy.
It's that easy. No, you would think that, but no one does it. Like really, no one wants to do it. And I would do that when we're at our biggest. We'd all come and do our 20 calls together, and you can't imagine how hard it is. It's like they fight it so hard they didn't want to do it. No one wanted to do it.
So you mentioned your database. What does that look like? You know, you said your assistant did a great job of keeping that organized and all that. When you sit down and you look at it, what are you looking at? What's on there? And you said you would update it. What would those updates look like?
So we have everyone's birthday. We call everyone on their birthday. Yeah. And once we close, we have their anniversary when they closed. We have the birthday. We try to get their kids' birthdays. We take notes on everyone, like, hey, what are they into? Maybe if we have a certain event, they'd be good for it. You know, maybe we do, like we've done a big pool party and invited everyone with the kids, you know. Right. So we would take notes on everyone, and it made it easy when we're doing certain events, like these are the people we can invite.
Sure. Well, right on. Well, is there anything else that you want to talk about? We talked about a little bit about sports. We talked a little bit about downtown living. We talked about traveling. You said San Diego's your favorite. What's your favorite city in Europe or country in Europe? I know that was a topic we talked about.
I love London. So I you know, every time I go to Europe, it's my favorite city. It's got everything I like. It's not as hot as the rest of Europe. It's kind of cool. I like the shopping. I like the food. I just like being in London. London's my favorite. I really like, what else? I like Florence in Italy, and I liked Amsterdam a bunch. So I liked a lot of Europe.
So San Diego is your favorite city, you said?
It is my favorite city. If I could live anywhere, it's San Diego.
Do you see yourself living there someday? Are you a San Antonio boy?
I'm a San Antonio boy because I'm working. Yeah. But I think if one day, if I'm just like totally not working, I don't see that happening.
Yeah.
Because I like what I do.
Yeah, you like working. Yeah.
I like what I do. But if I didn't, then it would be San Diego.
Okay.
And it, like, have you ever been?
I haven't.
So I've been a bunch. I go a lot. Yeah. And it's just being there. There's not anything in particular about it. It's just, it's the weather. It's just the feel of the city. And I love it. It's easy.
And recently you just ran with the Bulls, right? How was that?
I ran with the Bulls. So I do this thing where I have a bucket list of things that I want to do. And that was on my list. And when me and a handful of buddies, it was like 6, 7 of us, were like, hey, we should do this. And at the end of the day, it was me and one guy. But it was fine. Like, people talk. Sure. Me and him followed through. So we did it. It was funny because we actually trained for it, and we were sprinting and we're like, running long distances to get ready for this bull run. But once you get there, there's thousands of people, and you're in a crowd, and you're not running anywhere. You're just trying not to get run over by the bull, which was a good time. We ended up spending 2 weeks in Europe, and we ended up, we got a route, and we did a bunch of countries and had a good time.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, what's next on your bucket list?
So I have some weird ones on there, and I don't know. Like, I don't even want to say them because now I have to. Now, if I say them, now I have to do it. But I do want to climb Mount Everest one day. That's all my. You see how crazy it is?
Yeah.
And there's a.
Well, Tony Parker in his speech said, if your dreams aren't big enough to make somebody laugh, then they're not big enough. Right?
I think it's crazy, but I want to do it. Yeah. I don't know anyone that's done it. I didn't know anyone that had run with the Bulls, and I did it.
Yeah.
So that's one of them that's on my list. I have a handful of things that I want to do, that I need to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I enjoyed this, man. If somebody wanted to get a hold of you, how could they get a hold of you? Social media, phone, email? You want to drop any of that?
So our website is thetradegroup.com. Bobby Cortez, I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. The Trade Group is on Facebook. So we're everywhere. Just find us.
Right
Trade
on.
Group.
Well, I appreciate it, man. That was awesome. A lot of great takeaways, and enjoy your friendship, man.
For sure. Thanks, brother.
Yeah. Guys, thanks for joining us. That's the show. If you enjoyed it, share it with a friend. Leave us a review. Give us a rating. That really helps us grow the show as well. join our private Facebook group called The Productive Agent, and you can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. We thank you for joining us today. Now let's get out there and go produce.